a joy to be here. Why don't you all get up? I got a couple of things for you to do. You've been sitting around too long. Okay, I'm going to ask you to do two things. And when I finish one, I'm going to put my hand up. When you see my hand up, put yours up and shut your mouth, and I'll go on to the second one. First thing I want you to do is I want you to wander around for about 30 seconds and greet as many people as you possibly can, but greet them in a special way. Greet them as if they're unimportant and you're looking for somebody much more important to talk to. So greet each other as if you're unimportant. Okay. All right, now what I want you for another 30 seconds is greet as many people as you possibly can, but this time greet them as if they're a long-lost friend and you were really glad to see them. Okay. All right, you can sit down. All right. All right. Now, why did I do that? Except I'm from California. We're going to bring in some hot tubs here in a minute. But I think that being great in life and being effective in life is all about energy. And leadership's all about energy. How do you create energy for yourself and people around you? Now, where was there more energy in the room, the first activity or the second? Second. And what did I do to change the energy in the room? All I changed was what you were thinking about. From a negative thought, these are unimportant people, too. This is a long-lost friend, and I'm really excited about seeing him. How many of you know that the brain and the computer have a lot in common? I don't know if you knew that. Both the brain and the computer don't know the difference between the truth and what you tell it. You put information in a computer, it doesn't say, where'd you get those facts are wrong. What does the computer do? It does whatever it can with the information you've given it. What have we said about the computer for years? Garbage in, what? Garbage out. You know, the same way with your brain? If this morning you looked in the mirror and you said, you were fabulous, your brain's not going to say, who are you kidding? I know you a lot better than that. And but the brain doesn't know the difference between the truth and what you tell it. And so one of the things that I think is exciting about First Tee, and it's been wonderful, I was here all day yesterday listening to you and all, is that what you're really doing is trying to help people think about life differently and think about themselves differently. I'm really so excited about your mission statement, about how impacting young people, and what you're talking about is teaching them life skills. That's really what it's all about. Life skills so that they can what? Be more effective in their lives. And boy, this is really exciting. And through golf, you know, what an interesting metaphor golf is, you know, and I've said for a long time that golf spells game of life first. I don't know if you know that that's what it really spells. Because in golf, sometimes you're playing better than you should, and you got to deal with success. Sometimes you're playing worse than you should, and you got to deal with failure. Sometimes you get good breaks you don't deserve. Sometimes you get good breaks you do deserve. Sometimes you get bad breaks you don't deserve. Sometimes you get bad breaks you do deserve, all in a couple of hours. I mean, this is about life, you know. And I started playing golf when I was 6. My dad was a real nut, and he thought I ought to learn how to play golf. I grew up in New Rochelle, right outside of New York City, and my mother would drop me off at Saxon Woods Public Course, you know, and I would just hang around until I could get a game. And it's interesting, I never thought about golf and life until my book, The 1 Minute Manager, came out. And it came out in 1982. And shortly after it came out, I get a call from Jerry Tardy, who is the editor of Golf Digest. And he said, do you play golf, Ken? And I said, well, I'm a real nut. And the reason he asked me that is that there was a dialogue in the 1 Minute Manager where the young man in the book, it's a parable, is searching for an effective manager. The 1 Minute Manager says to him, do you play golf? And the kid says, well, I used to, but I don't play much anymore because it's too crowded out there. And the 1 Minute Manager says, well, then why don't you play at night? He said, why would I play at night? I couldn't see the pins. And the 1 Minute Manager says, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in organizations playing night golf during the day because they don't know where the pins are. And that was the beginning of the first secret of the 1 Minute Manager, 1 minute goal setting. And so Jerry said, Ken, would you write a 1 minute golfer article with one of our top teachers? And I said, yeah, if I could do it with Bob Tosky. I heard he was a real character. So I flew to Florida and I met Tosky. We spent a couple of days together. In June 1985, Golf Digest, on the cover, is a picture of Bob Tosky sitting on a golf bag that says the 1 Minute Manager on it, and we wrote the 1 Minute Golfer. And it was such a successful article, great impact. Jerry said, Ken, would you go to one of our golf schools and write an article, the 1 Minute Manager goes to golf school? So I went down to Alabama and spent a week, I think it was, with Tosky and Davis Love Jr. before he was killed, and John Elliott and Hank Johnson and all. Had a wonderful time, but I never wrote the article because I really didn't believe what they were doing. Now, that's something for me to say about Golf Digest Golf School. But the reality is I talked to people afterwards, and everybody got worse rather than better. And the reason is they had paralysis by analysis. They were teaching them too much. I mean, they were teaching beginners how to hit uphill, side hill lies. Hell, they once wanted to get the ball in the air, you know? And so when I got back home, Kip Pewterball, who's one of the great teachers in America, he was trying to straighten my golf game out after golf school. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to start a golf university? And nobody had that name. And we started a golf university because Kip and Lynn Marriott's here. You got to listen to Lynn and Pia sometime today. Lynn's one of the great teachers in the country. She was one of the people that worked with. We worked with the most wonderful teachers of golf. I couldn't teach golf. But what I know is about how to manage change. And see, managing change is all about how do you move people from dependence to eventually independence. You know, like yesterday, you're talking about this story brand stuff. And so the reality is that's going to be the system that you're going to have. Now, how do you really implement that in the organization? Well, it's a journey. It's a journey. And so what we did in our golf school is we managed the journey of learning so that it was a 3-day school. And the first morning we had good equipment and we would analyze people's game. And then we set 3 or 4 observable, measurable goals for them, you know, for their time with us. See, because the first secret of the 1 Minute Manager is 1 minute goal setting. All good performance starts with clear goals. Okay, and once we did that, then we would start to move them. We have a concept that our Blanchard Institute is starting to share. We started with Kathy and our San Diego group, you know, teaching kind of situational self-leadership and all about, you know, how do you get the help that you need to accomplish your goals? Because what people need is different strokes for different folks, but you also need different strokes for the same folks on different parts of your job, different goals. And so, what we did in the school is once we analyzed and had set goals, then using situational leadership, which we taught everybody the night before when they first got there, we gradually moved our leadership style from directing to coaching, from telling them specifically what to do and how to do, to coaching where we give them direction also while they're learning. And then as they started to learn to do some of the goals that we had set up for them, then we would start to move the second day to coaching and supporting. With supporting, you're just cheering them on. You're not even giving them more direction. And then the third day of our golf school, if somebody hit a shot, we wouldn't tell them what they did right or wrong until they told us what they did right or wrong, because we knew when the program ended that day, we were forced to a delegating leadership style. And so what you're trying to do when you're trying to implement any kind of change is you want to gradually, over time, move people through the cycle so that they are initially an enthusiastic beginner and excited. Well, how do you move them gradually where you can move from directing to coaching, where they maybe, now need some support besides direction, to as they now develop their skills, now you can just kind of give them the support and cheer them on so that eventually they can be self-directed achievers. And so that's really what we did with the golf school. And the difference between what we were doing with our golf school and the golf school I saw was really in terms of how do we take people over time from dependence to independence, so they have a goal or a new thing they're supposed to learn till eventually they own it for themselves. And so what you're trying to teach in First T is life skills. And when you're teaching people life skills, you start them and you work with them over time. And just like our wonderful colleague that spoke here in the beginning about over time, what he's learned and all that in terms of his life, in terms of the thing. And so that's what's really powerful, I think, in terms of what you're doing. And in terms of the leadership style, the thing that I've become really interested in recent years is the whole concept of servant leadership. And when I mention servant leadership out in industry and different groups, they think I'm talking about the inmates running the prison or trying to please everybody, but they don't understand that there's two parts of servant leadership. There's vision, direction, values, goals. I just love the mission and the values and all that you have for First T. You really have a really powerful thing, because, see, leadership's about going somewheres. And when you have a clear mission like you have here, and you really want to, connect, engage, and impact people, and you want to teach people the 9 powerful values and all that, that is all about vision and direction. And that really has to come initially from the hierarchy, and Joe played a major role in that. It doesn't mean you don't involve people, but people look to the hierarchy in an organization for the leadership aspect of servant leadership. Now, once the vision and direction is clear, now you move to the servant part of servant leadership, and now what you have to do is you have to turn that pyramid upside down. So now what? You're working for the people. And I heard yesterday constantly, it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids and all. And what I think the whole leadership at First T is all about servant leadership, because you have clear set of vision and values and goals and all that. And now it's all about how can we help the young people that we have. And it blows my mind, 10 million people, and now you're talking about another 10 million. What a fabulous thing. I was saying to somebody, how come this isn't in the newspapers and on the TV shows? They only report bad news. This is too good a story to report. This is fabulous what's been going on here, and I think you ought to all have a tremendous hand. And so when you turn that pyramid upside down, what you're trying to do is, what can we do for each kid, for each person, to move them along so that they can be up here talking about a guy who wants to be on the Supreme Court and is walking down the halls of the Senate and all that kind of thing. I'm going, whoa, isn't that fabulous? And that might not be everybody's dream and all that, because you got to all know what your own purpose is and your own dream and all. And First T is all about helping you lead a different life. And it's about turning that pyramid upside down. And so often in organizations that are run by self-serving leaders, what happens during implementation, because they might have a vision and all, but they want to keep the hierarchy alive and well for implementation. They want everybody sucking up the hierarchy, you know? And so you've probably run into those kind of organizations. As a customer, you got a problem, and you go to somebody who's a frontline employee, and they're in a self-serving organization, and what are you talking to? You're talking to a duck. And they're going, quack, quack, it's our policy. Quack, quack, I just work here. Quack, quack, I didn't make the freaking rules. Quack, 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 you know, and all because they aren't allowed to bring their brains to work. And where you run into an organization where they turn the pyramid upside down, what you have is eagles rather than ducks. And they're soaring above the crowd. And to me, the whole First T is all about creating eagles, people that can really make a difference in their lives and the lives of other people by turning that pyramid upside down, and they're into eagles. And let me just show you the power of this, you know, because as I said, I work in industry a lot, but I wrote a book with Colleen Barrett, who was the president of Southwest Airlines after Herb Kelleher decided to step down. And they're an amazing organization because they have a very clear vision. You know, they think that they're in the customer service business, but they happen to fly airplanes. And what they want to accomplish is they want to democratize the airways so that every American can be with a friend and a relative in a happy time or a sad time. That's why they're a low-cost airline. And then they have 4 very clear goals that values that everybody knows. The first value is safety because of the business they're in. And then they have 3 values that they want everybody to engage in every single day. One is a warrior spirit, and that's not combative. What it means is if you got a job, do it. You know, let's go. That's why they can turn a plane around faster than anybody in the business, because pilots are in there throwing garbage out with the regular staff. They don't say it's not my job and all that kind of thing. Their second key value I've never seen in another organization is a servant's heart. And one of the things that they do at Southwest, and I get the feeling that's what you do in First T with volunteers and staff members, you hire people and recruit people for character, and then you'll train them for the job that they're going to do. And that's what they do at Southwest. They hire for character, and then they'll train for skills. They're not going to put a pilot up who can't fly, but they're not going to put a pilot up who's a big deal. I heard a story a while back, you know, after they bought AirTran, was a pilot from one of the big airlines wanted to go and work with Southwest. So we flew down to Dallas in the Southwest plane. The report was he was rude to the staff there. And then when you walk into their corporate headquarters on Love Lane, there's a big sign that says, "We the people of Southwest." And he flipped off these 2 receptionists who were fabulous to greet you there and headed upstairs. And the receptionist called up and said, "This guy coming up looking for a job, I don't know why he's here. Let me tell you how he treated me." And I got a call from the pilot and said, this guy was flying in here for a job interview, and it sounds like the same guy. They didn't even interview him. They said, maybe this will be helpful to you. We're not putting up a pilot who can't fly, but we're not putting a pilot up who thinks he's a big deal. And then the last value they have is a fun-loving attitude. That's all about Herb. They're the only airline where they have fun. You know, we were on a flight a while back, and the stewardess got up on the microphone. He said, "This is the last flight of the day, and we're really tired, and we don't have the energy to pass out the peanuts and the pretzels and all. So we're going to put them on the floor up front, and when we take off and get some height, they'll come down the aisle." And everybody's having a ball, grabbing them and feeding everybody and all that kind of thing. So, but that's just that organization. So they have a very clear vision. And when Herb gave Colleen the job as president, she had never had a major leadership position. She was his executive secretary for 25 years. But he didn't want some Jack Welch lookalike coming in and changing the vision. He wanted somebody who the servant part was part of their life. And that's who Colleen is. Out of her office every year, 100,000 letters and emails came out to their 36,000 employees, catching them doing things right and congratulating them for kids and all that. And so she's really amazing. And just to show you an example, when I travel, and I should have worn it today, I have this thing around my neck. I call it my geezer pouch. You get older, you lose things, and I have in my geezer pouch my license, my passport, whatever what do you need, I've been trying to get Margie to have my wife because she can't find things in her pocketbook. But one day I loaded my geezer pouch up and I left it on my desk at home. And I'm pulling into the San Diego airport. And this is two years after 9/11, so a little uptight about who you are. And I realized I have no identification. And I didn't have time to go home. So the only book I've ever written with a picture on the cover is one I wrote with Don Shula, the great Miami Dolphins coach. They took our picture in Miami Stadium, called Everyone's a Coach. So I ran into the bookstore at the airport, and they happened to have a copy, so I bought it. And the first airline I had to go to was Southwest. And the guy says to me, well, I'm checking my bag. Could I see your identification? I said, I feel badly. I don't have a licensed passport. How's this? And I held the book up, and the guy shouts out, this man knows Don Shula. He said, put him in first class, And they're high-fiving me in the street. God, he knows Shula, And there's an older guy there, and he says, let's take him up. He said, I'll take you through the guards, which he did, And so it was amazing. The next day, I'm flying another place, and they didn't get me my license by then, so I had to use my book again. And I did with this license, and I showed the book to the guy out at the curb, and man, the duck doo-doo started to fly. He went, quack, you better go to the ticket counter. And I showed the woman the ticket, and she went, quack, you better talk to my supervisor. We call the supervisory duck the head mallard, because they just quack at a higher level, And pretty soon I'm talking to a guy in a suit and a tie, a real bureaucrat. And you can always tell bureaucrats, they have very tight underwear on, and they kind of waddle a little bit and all. And so I realized he was, because I was starting to confront him, so I had to change my thing. And I said to him, what a difficult task you have. I so appreciate your help, and I sucked up the hierarchy, and he let me on the plane. But you have to do these kind of gyrations. It's really ridiculous. And so what I want you to understand is the power of this. And I want you all to put your right hand on your left shoulder and your left hand on your right shoulder and give yourself a hug. You know why? Because you all are servant leaders. Those of you on the staff and volunteers are servant leaders, and you young people are learning how to be servant leaders. And the big difference is, as Connie yesterday talked about, is focusing on success versus significance. See, success is all about your achievements, your recognition, your power and status. There's nothing wrong with those, but if that's who you are, you need more of those if you're going to keep your self-worth up. And you're going to miss what's really important is significance. And I think what First T is all about is the opposite of achievements is generosity of your time, of your talent, of your treasure, and I like to add a fourth one, your touch. And what's the opposite of power? Recognition, it's service. And what's the opposite of power on power and status? It's loving relationships. It's loving relationships. And we lost our house in the San Diego fires in 2007. Just burned to the ground. We were in Florida, and we came home, and it looked like they had cremated the place. But I leave a morning message in our company every day. My title is I'm the Chief Spiritual Officer. And Thursday before the fire on Sunday, I left a message around my friend John Ortberg, who has a wonderful book called At the End of the Game, It All Goes Back in the Box. And it was about he and his grandmother. And his grandmother was an incredible Monopoly player. Any of you ever play Monopoly? He said she was vicious when she played Monopoly. She said she even acted like she was the illegitimate child of an affair between Donald Trump and Martha Stewart. But at the end of the game, she had everything, and he had nothing. And she would get a smile on her face, and she'd say, John, someday you're going to learn how to play the game. So one summer when he was about 13, this kid moved next door, and he was an incredible Monopoly player. And he practiced with her every single day because he knew his grandmother was coming in September. And when she came, he ran to the house, gave her a hug and a kiss, and he said, "Grandma, how about a Monopoly game?" And her eyes lit up. And she said, "Let's go, John." But he was ready for her this time. And he came out of the chute, and he wiped her out. He had Broadway. He had Park Place. He had everything. She had nothing. He said it was the greatest day of his life. And his grandmother said, "John, now you know how to play the game. You got to learn a lesson about life. It all goes back in the box." What's that? Everything you bought, everything you accumulated. I want to tell you that all your achievements, all your recognition, all your power and status, at the end of your life, they all go back in the box. The only thing you get to keep in life is your soul, and that's where you store who you loved and who loved you. I love the movie Ghost. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that, with Patrick Swayze. He plays this financial advisor who's killed by a supposed friend of his. And so he gets to stay on Earth as a ghost to protect his girlfriend, Molly, played by Demi Moore. And he gets to communicate with her by this wonderful clairvoyant that what's her name? Whoopi Goldberg plays. And it's just unbelievable. At the end of the movie, the three of them, he's avenged his death, are on the rooftop of Molly's apartment. And all of a sudden, this bright light comes shining towards them. And Oda Mae says, "They're coming for you, Sam." And he looks at Oda Mae, he says, "Your mama would have been proud of you." And then he turns to Molly, and if you ever saw that movie, he never told Molly he loved her. She would say to Sam, "I love you," and what would he say? "Ditto." And now with tears coming down his eyes, he says, "Molly, I love you. I always loved you." And she's crying, and she said, "Ditto." And he goes to face the light, and he stops one last time, and he said, "Molly, the remarkable thing about this is you get to take the love with you." And that's all you're going to take out of this thing. And I think that this whole first T is all about servant leadership, and that's love in action. It's all about love. It's making a difference. And I want to tell you, our Blanchard Institute, we're excited about being new partners, and we're looking forward to working with you more. And bless you all.